This morning, Texas politics in 2022. We are about to watch one of the most expensive governor's races in state history. A prediction on which statewide race might be Democrats' best shot of winning. And the important local campaigns that Texas Republicans are starting to focus on. In Dallas, the county's plan for an old courthouse could become a model for affordable housing across the state. County Judge Clay Jenkins is one of our guests. Homelessness is growing in the Panhandle, and hospitals there are filling up with unvaccinated COVID patients. We'll speak to Potter County Judge Nancy Tanner from Amarillo. And in Austin, how Travis County put politics aside to get one of the highest vaccination rates in the state. Judge Andy Brown joins us in just a moment.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you and Happy New Year as well. We are beginning 2022 with a look ahead here at Texas Politics. And our guests on this first program of the new year are talking about a lot of issues that often get crowded out of the headlines. Affordable housing, for example. It's not a lightning rod divisive issue, but it affects real Texans every single day. And in Dallas County, a new idea that might be a model for the entire state. County Judge Clay Jenkins first up with us in the new year here about that and other challenges lying ahead here in 2022.
Judge, Happy New Year to you. Welcome back to the program. Let's start with 2022. Obviously, looking ahead here, what are the biggest challenges you see facing Dallas County?
Well, we're still going to have COVID, and the best way to have a strong economically strong and happy new year is to combat COVID. So we're going to need to keep looking into those new variants, and the answer for our population is get vaccinated. We're going to help you do that and have plenty of clinics for that. Wear your mask when the doctors tell you to. And on my end, I'll do whatever's necessary to keep you safe from that, including stand up against our governor when he threatens your safety. It should be team human versus the virus. We just need to listen to the doctors. The other big challenge that we have early in the year, Jason, is they didn't do anything to strengthen the grid down in Austin. And so my team and I are working with our first responders to be ready to keep you safe should you lose power for an extended amount of time.
The rate of the fully vaccinated individuals in Dallas County is between 50 and 60%. Why isn't it any higher than that?
Well, I think until you have requirements at business, some people just are not going to get vaccinated. There's about a third of the people who are eligible for vaccine who say, hey, I just don't want to get vaccinated. I'm not going to do it unless I'm required to. And unfortunately, as long as you've got a group that big with an airborne virus that's not immune, and with the virus continuing to mutate into new variants, we're going to have this with us until we get serious as a country and as a state about putting an end to this. We've got some other great things, though. I don't want 2022 to start off with all bad news, because we're making unprecedented investment in mental health this year. We're going to build more inpatient facilities, more telemedicine, hire more doctors, make sure that if you need it, you've got it. We're getting our suburban police department those right care teams where it's not just a officer with a taser that responds to mental health or homelessness. It's also mental health professionals and addiction professionals, partnering with our schools, not just to keep your kids safe there, but also to get your kids the tutoring they need to catch up. And we're going to spend an unprecedented amount on infrastructure. Some of the projects really cool, like the 55-mile loop hike and bike trail around Dallas, and some of them about congestion mitigation or actively knitting neighborhoods back together. So a lot of good stuff that will be happening in 2022. One of those things, for those of you watching on the computer, is the city, the school district, and the county are going to spend over $100 million to improve broadband for our students, for our businesses, for everyone.
Well, you mentioned homeless. Let me go down that road for a moment here with you too, because affordable housing is something that Texas has always had until the last 5 or 10 years or so. And now it's almost hard to find unless you get out into one of these outlying counties somewhere and buy a plot of land. What is the answer for affordable housing here, especially if we want to attract businesses?
Well, the county is taking buildings that we own and tearing those down. We're taking land that we own, we're building on it. We're partnering with private business to build affordable housing. We've got a project going up right behind where the old Oak Cliff Sub Courthouse used to be, over off 12th and Zang. And that will house hundreds of families. And the one bedroom apartment there, when that's built, will be about $900. Those are a lot higher in other places, and so that's what we call affordable housing, affordable to people that are at 80% of the poverty level.
Will that be on the site of the old sub courthouse?
Just behind it, on what was the old parking lot and the vacant lot behind that. And we're looking for other plots to do that as well. And then we're partnering with Catholic housing and with other charities to build a more affordable housing in partnership with them.
Judge, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let's zoom out now and take a look at the calendar. This is an election year, obviously, with midterm races coming up. And for the first time in a quarter of a century, Texas Democrats might have a fighting chance for governor. Of course, the primaries are first, but if your ballot has Beto O'Rourke versus Greg Abbott on it in November, expect to be bombarded with ads, texts, mailers, and more, because it will be an expensive campaign. Watching this one wind up is Ross Ramsey, the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune in Austin, as always. Ross, good morning to you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Jason. How are you?
We're doing well here. Both Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke are clearly proven fundraisers. Do you expect that we're going to see what could be the most expensive governor's race in state history?
I'd be a little surprised if we didn't. Greg Abbott got to mid-year this year with $55 million in the bank. He's had 6 more months to raise money. He's a prolific fundraiser. Beto O'Rourke, in a race with campaign finance limits against Ted Cruz, raised $80 million. There's no campaign finance limits this time. I would expect this to be a $125, $150 million governor's race, no matter how close it is.
Unbelievable numbers when you say those out loud, but I don't think that's far off from what I'm hearing as well. Let's talk about our economy growing here in the new year, too. The state bank account kind of forecast to be full. Do we expect that's going to turn into some pricey ideas that candidates might have this election year?
I think it's going to be more than full. Controller Glenn Hager's numbers have been getting better and better. The initial numbers for COVID were pretty grim. It looks like the state gets to the beginning of the next session with about $12 billion in surplus and another $12 billion or more in its rainy day fund. So I think candidates this year are going to be coming up with programs. And when you ask that question in a debate or wherever, where are you going to pay for it? They're going to point at this big pile of money in the Treasury.
Yeah, they'll have the money. Ross, thanks a lot. Back to you in just a moment. Coming up, homelessness isn't just a big city problem, it is rising in the Panhandle. One of the biggest challenges facing Amarillo and Potter County. Nancy Tanner, the county judge there, joins us in a moment. And in Austin, Travis County put his politics aside with its Republican neighbors, and they now have one of the state's highest vaccinated rates. Part of our conversation with the Travis County Judge, Andy Brown. And keep up with Texas politics on the go this new year. Subscribe to our podcast. It is called Y'all-itics. New content, fresh interviews, episodes drop every Tuesday. Look for Y'all-itics wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics this new year. Let's refocus for a moment on the elephant in the room here, COVID, the Omicron variant. And the Texas Panhandle is going into 2022 facing a problem. Hospitals there are filling up again. Our next guest is the Potter County Judge, Nancy Tanner, a Republican, who is fighting that battle while also watching a rise in homelessness there. Judge Tanner, welcome back to our program. Happy New Year to you. Let's start with the Omicron variant. The cases seem to be milder, but Potter County's hospitalization rate and in the Panhandle, the hospitalization rate has been high lately. I'm curious how concerned you might be that the hospitals could fill up the colder it gets outside.
I am very concerned about that. Our numbers were at 20% and they're rising every day. 20% population of only COVID patients in the hospital. We've had over 500 deaths in Potter County alone. And so it's something that I thought was going to be taken care of with the vaccine. Apparently people aren't seeing it the same way I see it. And they are not getting vaccinated. And that's their choice. I would never force anybody to do that. So that is their choice. So it's up to them.
Judge, last time we talked to you last year, you talked about sometimes the ranchers out in the county just don't get into town to get the vaccine. But the fully vaccinated rate for Potter County stands around 40%. significantly below the state average.
Yes.
Do you think it's going to get much higher than that? The vaccine's been out for almost a year now.
Vaccine. See, and I thought with the way that we rolled out the vaccine so well, so superbly, I thought, man, everyone's getting it. No, the numbers are going to keep going lower and lower for the people that are vaccinated. As a matter of fact, it's in the 80 percentile for people in the hospital that aren't vaccinated. So it's really sad, but there's nothing. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to be the one that says you got to go get one. They don't. It's up to them. So I've got mine, and if I get this, I hope I don't have a horrible case of it. So
and 80% of the people in the hospital right now do not have the vaccine.
80%, a little bit higher than 80%. Yeah.
Do you think, considering the vaccine's been out for so long, do you think that the overall vaccination rate for Potter County is going to get much higher in the new year?
I would hope so. But I just don't know. It's made available. It's everywhere. It's at the pharmacies. It's at the health department. It's everywhere that these people go, and they still refuse to get it. So, you know, you can, what is the old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And that's exactly what's going on up here, literally. Even the horses don't want it.
Judge, I want to look ahead here into 2022. The single biggest challenge facing Potter County for the new year here, what do you think that is?
One of the biggest, I think, is the homeless population. It is growing pretty at a pretty high rate right now. For some reason, I don't know what's happened, but we're going to try to. My goal for next year is to come up with a plan for these people to get them out of the weather, get them something to eat, get them clean clothes, whatever we can do to help them out. Not that we don't do that now. We do try to do that now, but we're going to actually put some money towards it, some of our art money towards that, and make them a place where they can go and get out of the weather and be safe.
Judge, across the state, we're seeing just affordability for affordable housing, a huge issue in the Metroplex down to Houston, Austin, yeah. San Antonio. Is Potter County dealing with that as well too? And if so, how do you arrest that? How do you get that down? You don't. That's the problem with all the COVID. The people that rent out space all the time, they lost money during this because there was no one had to pay rent for so many months, and so they're already sinking, already going down. And so we're trying to come up with a plan that will bypass them and just make a place, just a certain place in this town for the homeless population to go. All right, Judge Tanner, it's always good to see you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
Homelessness is also a major problem in Austin as well, but Travis County tackled COVID a little differently. The Democratic county judge there put politics aside, called his Republican colleagues in neighboring counties, and they teamed up on vaccinations to get one of the highest rates in the state. Travis County Judge Andy Brown is back with us on Inside Texas Politics, talking about that success and what our crowded state capitol plans to do with the infrastructure money that is coming here in the new year. Judge Brown, welcome to our program. Glad to have you on here, and Happy New Year to you. Let's start with infrastructure. Few places seem to need a massive injection of infrastructure money than Austin and Travis County, especially when it comes to mobility. What are the priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of roads, obviously, that need some improvements, a lot of regional corridors. We just got a big infusion kind of over the long term for Capital Metro and the transit infrastructure, which I really look forward to. But yeah, still looking through the process of the new infrastructure funding that's coming from the federal government, trying to make sure that we can get roads like, 969 is one example, a road that heads east from downtown that needs to be widened and improved in many ways. Judge, the fully vaccinated people in Travis County stands at about 70%. The partial vaccinated stands at almost 80%. You guys seem to be, leading this state. What in the world is the secret for the counties who can't catch up to those numbers? One of the secrets, frankly, is early on, I think last February, sometime actually around the winter storm, I got together with the county judge in Bastrop County, Caldwell County, and Hays County, and the four of us sent a letter to TDEM, to the Texas Department of Emergency Management, and said, hey, if we work together and build a massive drive-through vaccination event at Circuit of the Americas, will you give us more vaccines? And they said, okay, they gave us, about 3,000 at first, and we showed we actually knew what we were doing and got this drive-through vaccination thing going at Circuit of the Americas. In the end, I think we got about 200,000 more vaccines for the region than we otherwise would have gotten. And so I think part of this, frankly, is taking politics out of it. Two of the county judges I was working with on that were Republicans. I'm a Democrat. And we all just said, you know what, this is what the doctors are telling us we need to do. Let's make vaccines as available as possible for our population. And since then, we have kept on, especially in the minority communities, in the Hispanic and African-American communities where the vaccination rates are lower. We now have operations run through our constable, George Morales, that actually go to grocery stores in those parts of town, sometimes to public schools, to elementary schools, and really do an effort of making the vaccines available where people already are, trying to make it just as easy as possible. And with that, we've gotten, as you said, really impressive rates of vaccinations when you compare it to the state as a whole. And I think that holds up with the pediatric vaccines, kids 5 through 11. I think we've got somewhere over 25% of those kids already vaccinated, comparing to the state number, I think of about 11% or so. And I think a lot of that has been working with our public schools and making them available there.
Judge, as it gets colder outside, we're in the winter, obviously, and as we close in on the 1-year anniversary of the failure of the power grid in the state, how concerned are you that we could all go through a repeat of this? It seems like everyone just has their fingers crossed this winter.
Yeah, I think the Farmer's Almanac says something about the last week of January being a potential another storm. I think that their prediction, for whatever that's worth, is that it might not be as severe as last time, but it scares me, frankly, that there has not been much done to fix the grid, as far as I can tell. The reports I've seen show that if we had exactly the same storm as we had last year, that we'd be in exactly the same situation in terms of electricity availability. So I'm, not looking forward to that.
Judge Brown, good to see you, and good luck for the new year.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you.
Coming up, some predictions for 2022, and one in particular that Bud Kennedy has on what he thinks might be the Democrats' closest statewide race this year. We'll talk about that next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross Ramsey is back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe is the political producer at WFAA in Dallas. And Bud, let's start with you this new year. You have a prediction on this Democrats, maybe their closest race statewide, what you think it might be later this year.
Well, everybody's looking at the Attorney General's race, depending how it comes out. This is one that'll start with a March primary and then probably go to a May runoff. We'll see who the Democrats nominate, from Rochelle Garza, Joe Jaworski, or Lee Merritt. Some fiery candidates there. And then we'll see what happens to Ken Paxton in the interim, if he's the Republican nominee and if he winds up on the ballot in November.
Bernadine, let me ask you about that. Can any Democratic nominee for AG, can they overcome the party's weakness, though, or is Beto O'Rourke going to lift all the boats?
Well, it's going to depend a lot on Beto O'Rourke, but I don't think that Paxton is in that much trouble, to be honest with you, because even with his history, his legal problems, he has not lost one poll. So I think that you're going to see him do very well. It's not going to be a runoff in the Republican primary. Now, once we get into the general, unless something changes, remember, this is the 1st of January. But unless something changes, he's going to be the Attorney General again.
Ross, what do you think going into 2022 here? It's obviously plenty of time before the election, before the primary, but do Democrats really have a shot at this seat?
I think it's going to depend on how the governor's race goes and whether that's close. I think you're right about all the votes rising, and there's tens and tens of millions of dollars in that governor's race, so it could tighten up a lot of races. If it does, Ken Paxton's one of the people who could be in danger.
Let's shift off, Bud, to something that we've watched Republicans do successfully for a decade or more, it seems like, and that's really focused on down ballot races, judicial races, and now they're really focusing on school board races and places like that. How important is that, and why are they that focused on that? Is it because of all the CRT stuff we have watched last year?
Well, Republicans have found out that the down ballot races now are decided by what people see on cable TV news. So if they focus on critical race theory, Black Lives Matter protests, things like that, then they can win local races, that they can build up their bench and build up their talent. We'll see more of those discussions in the coming year. Critical race theory has become a big political issue, and the Republicans have learned that it's a winner.
But at the end of the day, Bernadine, these are not partisan races for school board and for so many of these.
No, but a lot of times the Republicans are making it partisan. And I have not seen yet a decent response from Democrats, because it appears as if they don't take CRT, critical race theory, seriously. And it's going to be, if the Republicans can win these local races, it's going to be crucial. And I think that also, as said earlier, is going to depend on what Abbott does with the governor's race. But the Democrats, as I've said frequently, they have a messaging problem, and they must get the handle on the CRT.
Ross, let me ask you about that. CRT, critical race theory, is kind of blown up with Republicans. It clearly activates Republicans. So does social justice activism as well. It activates Republicans, but again, Democrats don't only have a messaging problem. They just don't seem as interested in trying to secure these seats.
That's not the issue that they're fighting on. I think the Republicans are trying to get labels on these candidates that are quickly identifiable by voters who already think they're Republicans. So if I don't know anything else about a mayoral candidate, and I know he or she is a Republican and I'm a Republican, that's going to get my vote wherever they are on these other local issues. Those things just sort of feed the fire.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter whether it's nonpartisan or not. People are going to vote for what they are familiar with. Guys, thank you so much. We appreciate that, and thank you for watching as well this new year. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be back again next week to take you inside Texas politics, and hope you can join us then. Happy New Year.